when you have unconditional love, whether it's outside of you or inside of you, when you feel that unconditional love, crisis never feels like a crisis because you know you're supported. But a crisis feels like death. It feels like, oh my God, moving through the crisis or the death. It doesn't have to be a crisis because it's not you that's burning. It's you that's burning it. Like you're burning what is not you. You are the fire. You aren't the wood.
In your divine essence you shine. In your divine essence you thrive. I'm your host, Riss, and you're listening to Essence Podcast.
Hey soul babes, welcome to the Essence Podcast. In this week's episode, we are diving into talking about rebirth, transformation, and what that looks like in order for us to get closer into connecting with our truest form of self. And the phoenix is really the symbol of what we want to share here. That all comes back to that cycle of life and death, getting used to the rhythmic pace of that cycle of nature. So without further ado, I want to introduce Ella. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to get into this, and this is a deep passion of mine. My rising is Scorpio, and that is like huge in the cycles of death and rebirth. So I feel like my whole life I have been going through cycles very quickly of death and rebirth, and always with a feeling of crisis. I always had this like, every time I was going through a crisis when I would die. Very recently, I found this balance in being able to rebirth, but with pleasure rather than crisis.
I am also a rising Scorpio. So I totally get what you're saying here. This life and death transition that's constantly in circulating the vortex of you. And for me, now that I know this, I totally see this has been something for myself, this Phoenix energy. And it has been an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Over and over again of okay, I got it this time. I'm on this track of I understand who I am, and I'm tapping into this true form of self. And then there's a layer that's wait, you have to go deeper. There's another part of you that needs to die. And it starts, again and again. Getting into the article, I am going to share this with everyone because I feel this is a must read for everyone, even if you aren't a Scorpio rising. Life, death, the cycle radiates within all of our lives.
Yeah.
So the part that really got me, it was the part where you said the manifestation of true self is not a solid thought form, but more like the fluidity of fire, allowing for the expression of my inner passion in whichever way it wants to go. And I felt for me, what that really looked like was this podcast, I didn't even really think it was gonna happen. This was not part of my manifestation per se.
Oh.
Ideally, what I truly want and call in multiple times, and I've, built a foundation with, is being of service in a way of healing others. Yeah. So I always made an effort to be a part of hosting retreats or showing up in different places. And I was given the opportunity to do so, but it was just these tastes of what I wanted, but it never really solidified itself. And it made me frustrated because this is what I wanted. But where my mindset was, where I wanted it was I want to heal everybody. Let me do your work for you type of thing. And it wasn't working, because obviously we have to do our own healing. We can't heal everyone. So my mentality and my mindset limited me because of that. And then on top of that, there was other layers besides what I wanted as a service. There was layers within myself that I needed to mend and work through. And specifically my throat chakra was blocked for a very long time. So coming back to this manifestation of I see what I want and I'm taking the steps to possibly get there, and I get a taste, but there's also things that are within my life that are blocking me still, that I need to work through. And I feel like it matches very well to how I feel, how it resonated with me, because it's not like a linear line that we get to where spirit wants us to go. It's like where we need to go, like what's actually going to help us and benefit us. So like coming now to this podcast, like it's really helped me open up my throat chakra. So
Yeah.
if you really watch from the beginning till now, like I have made such I see a difference in like the way that I speak or how I present myself, because I feel like this was sort of one of the roots, the cycles of like having to find that like transformation of like my throat chakra and my inner world, instead of constantly what I want to get in my outer world. So it really starts internally. And yeah, so that piece, that part right there, like was like, it hit home.
Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And yeah, and when you identify, right, with that inner fire inside, not like what you know you want, it takes you this way and this way, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still the same fire. It's still that same
Right.
fire, and fire burns what like does not serve it. So when you stay with that fire, when that fire is your identity, then
Yes.
like naturally all that doesn't serve you burns.
Yeah. And like for my question for you is like, how in your ways of like, what were you feeling when you wrote that? Like, what is ideally what's burning within you?
Well, okay. I want to start like saying what inspired me to write the article. I was having a conversation with my mom, and she was telling me about this other mom who was coming to her about her son who like was suffering a lot with anxiety, specifically around like he plays basketball and he was really struggling to play what he loved to play because he would
Mm.
get so nervous about failing or messing up. And immediately, because I have struggled with that too, I grew up playing sports and I could barely even function before a sports game because my identity, my worth was so tied to this. And this manifested in
Mm-hmm.
so many other ways, whether it was sports, it was socialization at one point, like my friends, my boyfriend one time, like all of my worth was into him. Anyways, the identity crisis behind putting your worth into something else is so, so, so killing. Like it is so killing,
Mm.
it's so scary. And you
Yeah.
can you can rationalize all you want through it. Like, no, you're fine. Like this isn't gonna matter. But until you actually go into that core root of identity, those external things don't lose their power. I see it in a lot of people being first seeing it in myself, then I can see it in others. And just that struggle with identity and that struggle with putting your worth outside of yourself. And yeah, so I wanted to write that article and I did to like really anchor in that worth is not dependent on anything external. And yeah, that's unconditional love. That's unconditional self-love. That's it. That's it. That's everything. And when you have unconditional love, whether it's outside of you or inside of you, when you feel that unconditional love, crisis never feels like a crisis because you know you're supported. Crisis is not a crisis. It's just like a little bump. But a crisis feels like death. It feels like, oh my God. And yeah, that's every crisis is an identity crisis because there's that lack of unconditional love.
I definitely think it's comes down to like, you're also like the way that you see worth, and like the thing outside of you is what's making you feel like worthy.
Mhm.
So whether that had been the sports or for me, as I said in the beginning, my story of like how healing people, I felt like that was the only way, like being out there was like, okay, if I can already make this my business and be of service in this way, like this is accounts to my worth of like who I am, you know.
Yeah.
I'm also a Capricorn, so ambition and like focus of like hard work and like finding service, like being of service is like like it has to be some sort of foundation for me. And because I feel like I'm in the process of just seeing what that looks like and feeling my way through like who I am, and that plays into like the identity crisis that have constantly unraveled itself within my life. So it's like coming to now to like where I have to also bring myself out of like seeing that something that I want doesn't make me like, that doesn't like prove my worth. It's like, it's within me.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it starts within the unconditional love that I have for it within myself is what really matters.
And the unconditional support too. That ties into the love one now, especially in this scenario too, when I believe that like support and love, they go hand in hand. And that support, that feeling of support is so necessary.
In a bigger perspective of like us being humans, it's like one cannot coexist without the other. So like in order to feel unconditional love or support, we have to feel the opposite to even know that like that's on the other side, support and unconditional love. So it at the bigger spectrum of like our soul level of like why we're here, it is like all part of this nature of like even understanding that to even feel life and death, it's like one, you have to experience one and then the other, and then like again it's just like they coexist with each other, the duality of life. It's a matter of like you said, seeing the crisis be something like not so much of a crisis but making your peace with the crisis, to see that like there's always going to be one. So like sort of not get used to it, but more so make peace with it, like understand it.
I know I actually mentioned this in my articles, like being that fulcrum to the seesaw, you know, that in the two going back and forth, like you are the stability of that, you know, you
Right.
are that middle right in between. And something else that came to me when you're speaking to, especially about focusing on fire too and Phoenix, like moving through the crisis or the death, you know, it doesn't have to be a crisis because it's not you that's burning. It's you that's burning it. Like you're burning what is not you. You are the fire. You aren't the wood.
I think what happens is when we get stuck in the like midst of the burning, we feel the burning sensation more than the actual thing that we're actually like a part of the burning. Like we are the flame burning. So we identify with one thing, and that is usually the pain. I think it's because like a lot of us aren't really like taught to like embrace our pain or like see pain as something that's a part of life. So we get blindsided by one thing and we continue to seek only one thing. So like happiness or like peace or like love. Like we want to stay in our light, and that blocks us from understanding our darkness and understanding the part of us that is still operating like under the subconscious mind, or in this case like what part of us is getting burned by the flame or in the flames, and the other one is actually lighting the flame. It's like we are to open our perception to seeing both, that we are participating in both sides.
Your mind will protect you in every way if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel safe to embrace that pain, if you don't feel safe to
Right.
go into the dark, you know, and what's essential for that is that support, is that knowing that your identity like is not in being light, or your identity is not in being happy, and you are only safe when you're happy and only supported when you're happy. You are so safe when you're in the pain too. That's part of life. And to identify with the fire inside of you, to identify with that stability inside of you that is unconditional love, unconditional support, that is desire, that is this. It doesn't leave you when you're feeling pain.
I feel like that's sort of where we get kind of like afraid, like we freak out because obviously if we can't see it, then it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like, who is that? You know, like around me. And it's like, it's you. Like, it's all the layers of you, every
Yeah,
version of yourself that is circulating you.
I'll just say from my perspective, like from my life, I felt ashamed of my darkness and was really ashamed to admit to myself, first and foremost, that I felt this darkness inside of me. To let go of that shame, to let go of that fear. Once again, to know that unconditional love, like unconditional support inside of you. There's nothing to shame. There's nothing to fear because everything that comes out of you, everything that you feel is part of you, and you are part of your soul, which is a part of God, which is part of life.
I think it's more of like even the idea that like that shame that is embedded in us, or these like lower vibrations of ourself that, you know, are kind of like trapped in time per se, you know, because it's not even really happening anymore. It's just like we feel this internally. I think it comes also full circle to the moment that you said about how we put our validation like outside of ourselves, you know, this like something outside of ourselves didn't show us that unconditional love. So internally in that moment, like nobody was sort of there to like tell us it was okay. So now that we're sitting with it and it's in our shadow, it's up to us to like be that support for ourselves as well. And also when we can share it with other people, our pain, it helps, you know, mend it too. But it comes back to bringing that like unconditional love and support into that shadow aspect of who we are. What I've been mentally having to like mend is this, like, I don't have to be a master right away. Like the comparison that I put on myself towards other people that have already been like that I see as more of like inspiration, but somehow ends up feeling like competition in such a way that it's like, why am I not at that level? So I feel like for me, that's where my shadow self and this rebirthing is happening, because it's like I have to let myself go through this fire of like being a beginner. Like, just let yourself get messy. Let yourself go through the motions of trial and error. And then, like, you'll see that, like, once you allow yourself to be rebirthed and, like, find your way through it, then, you know, you become, of course, over time, your own master. But this idea of, like, being in the actual, I feel like the fire right now, it's like seeing myself on like, I want to like burn this fire, this like subconscious limited belief I have, but then a part of me is like, it hurts, it's burnt, like, you know, it's like it's a lot, but like it's like I have to, you know, it's like two sides of myself, like really just trying to help, but also feeling, of course, like this ego, I guess, is more suffering than anything else. That it's like this is where mentally I am. That's, I guess, why I felt very called to share, like, talk about this with you, because it is this making peace with that cycle and that fire that's continuously burning.
Yeah, I think that's a very similar place that I'm at in my journey with the identity and, yeah, birthing who I am into this world. There's always this aspect of action and like rest, this aspect of burning, and then there's that like if you think of a candle, there's that like around the wick, it gets a little blue and like invisible. There's this aspect of building a house, and then there's the foundation. The key with like, and this is where I'm going, and what I'm finding so much stability and peace in with who I am, is not focusing on what needs to burn, but actually deepening the invisible part, deepening the darkness, deepening that, like sitting in my soul and my subconscious. And what that feels like is sitting with that desire that comes up, sitting with these feelings that are like constantly moving, constantly colored inside of me, and in every decision I make, like in every moment I'm walking through, like staying there and focusing on staying there. And sometimes I feel myself not in there. I feel myself going, and I just notice like I have like I'm not in my inner truth right now. I want to come back and just like,
Right.
yeah, that allowing myself to occupy my body, allow myself to take space, myself energetically, physically to take space, to have boundaries, to have what I know, you know. My throat chakra is it's something that has just recently like started opening. Just even a little bit, but my throat chakra has always been like my biggest tension, my biggest block.
My throat chakra too, like it needed some type of adjustment, some type of like expression, and this podcast like was going to be that safe haven for me to just like let what I want to say out, and make it my own, and bring on beautiful guests like you to like join in and have these like delightful conversations that I have a lot of these with myself, or like with my mom, like, or with close friends. Like I have these juicy topics, or like this beautiful yummy energy everyone can indulge in, and I felt like I really was afraid to express it like out loud, or feel like I was going to be judged or this, way. But I allowed my inner fire of like, okay, I really want to open my throat chakra. Like, the more that I pointed that fire towards like what I needed to like adjust and open up, it came down to like also just choosing me, and like seeing that I'm really not going to get anywhere if I don't follow what God's telling me to do, like this calling that's like there, So taking on this podcast and making this foundation, it's just the beginning, but it has really helped me, like my throat chakra, be able to like open up. And it's also helped my ego be able to get out of the way of certain things, because like I'm editing this, I'm putting the words together on what it's going to say. And, I'm also being the host on this. So like it's allowing me to tap into just many layers of just seeing myself all the way around. From, when I'm editing, I'm seeing myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is weird. Like I want to like edit everything out that I say and keep everything that everyone else says, but that's me still limiting myself. So I've been, in the process of like, okay, just let it all out and let it be what it is. So yeah, wherever it wants to go, you follow it.
In those moments where it's like, oh, it's just like, no, I want to edit this out. But it's like you you're letting go. You're letting go of the mind. You're saying, no, what, I'm just gonna do it anyways. I'm doing it anyways.
Yeah.
And that's the key to the fire. Sometimes like at some point, like we can find that stability, but it's like it doesn't feel like just doing it anyways, but that's first you strengthen the fire by just following it first, and then it gets stronger and stronger, and it doesn't feel like it's not a battle anymore. It becomes normal,
Right. I mean, this flame and this rebirth, like I love the way that you said about going back to your foundation, and then like, continuing to build yourself up, and, following your calling, your truest form of self. That's where it's like that fire is taking you to that truest form of like who you are. And part of the process of being human on this planet is like also having to learn how to navigate through the masses, through everyone else's, journey that they're also on, and not getting, like you're mingling and you're intertwining with other people's, but you also have to like know where you end and they begin when they begin, so you have to like know where your energy is like, okay, this is it. This is all you, and this part right here is who I am, and yeah, I feel like even our closest people that we have, like they're close to us, and, we consider them like people we can come to and talk to, but they as well have their own boundaries. They have their own other version of themselves that they connect with other people. So it's like everyone's not for everybody at the same time. So I think we get kind of like, for me, I get kind of like lost in the sauce on that part, you know, like where I'm like, well, everyone needs healing. Like everyone, and we do, but like it's not for everybody what I'm teaching or what I'm doing or what I'm saying. So it's also turning that worth back into like just continue to come back to your foundation.
Yeah, knowing that like you're so worthy, so much so that like the people who are for you, the people that God sends to you, the people that their inner desire sends to you, like those are the people sent through you.
Yeah, because I mean, the way that I see it too is like, of course, like, I mean, we live in the US, and like when we're at an early age, we're ready to be prepped and pampered to like be in our career, you know, like, and go choose this path and do that. Like, we have to know at such like a youthful age of like what we're all gonna do in like just a little bit of time. It's like we don't even really know who we are yet until we're considered adults and our parents switch it up on us, you know, like now it's time to be an adult and take on an adult mindset. So I feel like connecting back to that truest form of self, feeling the like life and death, the identity crisis, it like hits us even harder because of that, because we're like, whoa, like I really thought I was this person, but I guess not.
Yeah, especially living in the US too, where it is like abruptly. All of a sudden, go. It's like, what? It's like, it gives that feeling of crisis because it's like, where's the support? Like, where's this like gentle carrying me into adult life?
Yeah. What
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, what happened? Like, where are you holding my hand? Just like a baby when
Yeah.
like they take their first steps, it's like you hold their hand first and then they go. It makes that support feel abruptly cut off, and that's shocking. That's shocking to the system, shocking to the identity, shocking to that in itself is a trauma, big trauma, especially like when you are a child, a teenager, like your identity is still, your worth is still with your parents a little bit, you still
Mm-hmm.
have that spiritual tether, that emotional tether to that is not ready, that is not like
Right.
psychologically ready to
Yes.
like feel completely only supported inside or just supported through your tether to God or what, it's like you're still tethered to your parents. So yeah, it is a trauma whether you feel really stable inside or not. It's a crisis that you go through if you don't feel the support at that age.
I just wrote about this because I'm also writing a book. So this is something that I'm like very like passionate about, is coming back to the inner child and like reparenting herself, because a lot of our trauma is stemmed from our childhood. And in our childhood, you know, we're soaking up like a sponge everything going on in our external world, how to survive. So, like, in those beginning stages, we're just coming out of like, we're in this innocence light, you know, like we're unapologetically doing what we want to do. Then we become conscious. And then by teenage years, we're like self conscious, you know, and we're just like sort of transitioning into like where emotions are just becoming more heavy and like vivid, and like we can feel it, like everything is just coming for the first time, even like the relationships we're going through, the friendships, and like we're slowly learning how to be a human and like and how to like move. And then by the time we're like in our early 20s, and you know, it's like then we're still figuring it out, like, and that's what, yeah, like the identity era of like who we are, and like figuring out now that we are considered an adult and this is like labeled that way. It's like where then we have to go back and see like what is actually holding us back from things that we were taught from our parents. And I feel like for me, this is ideally where the rebirth is happening,
Yeah, is
is a
rebirthing you
lot.
up. Yeah.
Yeah,
That little child inside, because that fire is the little child too. That child is
exactly.
like the exact manifestation of your fire. They did what they want. They moved this way, that way.
Yeah, their flame was going and they were like, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to like, and it was okay because it was okay to embody everything. And like, I think right now it's like, when you become that adult, it's like, okay, you have to really, again, figure out like who you are and what you're doing. My mom is like in her late 40s. She's not 50 yet, but she has like 2 more years. Sorry, Mom, I'm putting you on blast. But she is also going through her transformation stage. Like her and I began our healing journey together. And so it's just like, it's beautiful to witness that like everyone needs their own healing journey to like help them heal from their past, from their childhood, and bring the child back home to like the burning sensation, like following that light again. So even just witnessing my mom like come back to her inner child, and we've done a lot of like different little workshops together, or like we did the artist way. So we read the book and did like the whole 12-week journey, and I learned a lot about my mom when she was a child and like her own traumas, and I would have never even known that she had many of them. And now that we get to take this journey together, it's like I understand her and I can see her child and I can see her like intertwining again with her inner child. So it's just a beautiful thing to witness, honestly. Coming back home.
That fire inside is home. When you feel that fire and you feel that unconditional love, it's like that's home. What stopped that little child from letting her fire, his or her fire, going everywhere is shame. It's this, let's lock you up, let's put you in a box. And we do this to ourselves. Like, we think our passion has to go in a box. It has to become a form, that our identity has to become a form. Everything has to be a form, but no,
Right.
like, let yourself be let yourself be like the fire. The fire has a form, but it's moving. It can go this way and that way. Even the phoenix, it has a form, but is known for burning and rebirthing as a little baby again. So the phoenix isn't that bird. The phoenix is like, it is the bird, but it's essentially flame that whatever, that silence, that stillness in the flame that makes the flame and then births the baby again. It's that fulcrum coming
Right.
back to that stillness. And that's our true identity. That's who we are. That identity births the bird. That stillness births the bird, births the person, births everything, births even the flame. The flame, essentially, in this metaphor, is a symbol of what we can feel and what we can sense. But even beneath that is that stillness, is that invisible, like, heat, that invisible, and that's who we are. But it speaks to us in the flame. It speaks to us in desire. It speaks to us in emotion.
Even when you're having that passion and you feel it and it's burning you and it's taking you up to a few steps ahead to help you get to like this next version of yourself, there is at any point in time another death. That's the thing where we have to see that when we take a like 10 steps forward or like 10 steps back, there's always like another step forward. Like we already step back and then step like forward. Whatever which way that looks for all of us, it's like that back and forth, it is what it's part of like the rebirthing process. And I see like the symbol of like the phoenix also representing just in the tarot deck, there's this like beginner mindset and there's this mastery. So like, for example, there's this a page of wands. This is like a beginner mindset. And then the master is like the king of wands. So you're going through this cycle of like innocence and like sort of being a fool where you're getting messy, and then you get to like these levels of like understanding the process, and then you get to the phoenix, the whole body. You see the wings, everything. This is also representing like the king of wands, like he's wearing his crown, he knows what he's doing. And once we get to this level of mastery, we don't stay a master. Like we let ourselves burn again. We let ourselves like die in die in the flames, like rebirth ourselves to becoming the ashes, the page of wands. Like this beginner mindset starts again. And I feel that we lose that, at an early age, because we have to like again come back to knowing what we want, becoming the master. And then once we become the master, then we turn into the flame, or to the like flames, and we become ashes. And then we're like, okay, what do we do with our lives now? Like what does this look like now? And then it's when we have that connection, with our spirit, with ourself, that we get the ping, the idea to become that other version of ourselves. I see like it as wisdom. So like at that mastery level of you knowing what it's like to had tread through whatever you had to go through to get to the mastery level, that becomes your wisdom, I feel, and it helps others with their own identity crisis, with their own traumas, to know that like there is somebody out there that has been through the same thing as you, or is going through the same thing as you. And then that's where you also get to find your support person, where you get to discover unconditional love. And like, it's coming back to this whole connection of like through the process, there's always going to be that support and unconditional love you'll end up seeking and finding.
For especially around the age of 18, I felt like that feeling of where's like the support. It just like I was so scared. I felt like even though my parents like they were ready and okay to support me, I still had this feeling inside, but like, oh no, one day they won't. One day they're gonna cut me off. This fear was living in me. I think it was living in me before this too, like my childhood. I didn't feel very emotionally supported. I didn't really. I never felt stable. I never felt stable. And I had this experience recently. I did a breathwork training in Greece. During one of my sessions, I had a very emotional session, and people were supporting me and loving me and giving me blankets and all of these things. And like I felt like I felt so scared to receive this support, this love. And I was talking about it, and I was just like crying it out, allowing myself to be seen. And they were just like, yeah, Ella, like you are allowing yourself now to receive this support. Like, look, like now you're crying, now you're seeking the help. It's okay. We've got you. And it was in that moment of allowing myself to be seen that I felt this support. But then I got sick. And I got sick in another country. I was not home. I didn't know what to do. Like, I couldn't do it on my own. I was like really sick. I couldn't get out of bed. So I was constantly being like reminded after the situation where I was crying and learning to ask for help. I was constantly just being reminded the next few days. I asked for help, ask for help, ask for help, because I needed to ask for help, or I don't know what would have happened, but not good things. And I came out of this situation, this undeniable like feeling of support that it wasn't associated just with these people. It was associated that like in any moment in my life, and I feel hopeless or like I can't get through it, I'm at an unyielding wall, that I can ask the universe, I can ask anything. I can just call out for help and somebody will be there. And this does what you just said about you'll find that person who is going through the same thing that you are, or knows it, like when you call to the universe for help, when you allow yourself to be seen, which can just look opening up that inner fire to go whichever way it wants to, just that magnitude of expression, of openness. The support
Mm-hmm.
comes, like the support is there at the click of a button, or the snap of your
Yeah.
fingers. The support is there.
your body was releasing something that it held tension on, which was like not letting support really in or feeling distant from it. And it was almost like medicine for you, that it sort of like helped you purge, but you were, like in a way you got sick. But this also was a blessing in disguise, because this was allowing you to also reach out for help and continue on with the medicine of like receiving help. Oh, it's so crazy how like we can get into things and like the name is in it. It says it all. And we're just like, sure, but we don't understand what this is going to look like for us. But we just kind of go with it. And like for you, I'm sure you probably were not aware that's what you needed at the time.
I had this deep feeling, like, of course, we all do, is like the intuition that something's not right, you know? Like, it's almost like this feeling, I
Mm-hmm.
need to get something out. Like, that's what drew me to the breath work in the first place, you know? It's like this deep feeling,
Yeah.
like, this will help me. But with what? That's
Yeah.
what I didn't know. And it was
Uh,
quite essentially like this fear of receiving this support and this distance from support, you know, that was causing all these sorts of troubles in my life, you know, and just to like open that connection again to, you can see it as like, I see the flame as like the heart and the solar plexus. And then this soul is like our root, and then our root is rooted into the earth, which is, and so like to open up all that was blocking me from like receiving the support, receiving my root, you know, receiving this safety. It was like this distancing me from this connection to God, to the universe, to connection. And yes, to open that block, it was like opening a dam, you know, it's like,
yeah, it's powerful. I mean, especially when you're led to where you need to go. And you take that initial jump, like you felt it was something, in you needed adjustment, and you had no idea what it was going to look like. But there's also these passionate parts of you, that flame that is guiding you. And like everything is synchronistically placed with like the word, the place, the like people, every part of it was like it had to be just right in order for you to like feel that moment of releasing.
yeah.
You got to surrender to the fire. You got to surrender to the intuitive pings, because if you don't, then you end up like continuously being burned for like, I mean, it is for a reason, but like you're doing this to yourself. Like, just follow what your heart wants. So I think it's like fear really can get in the way of some people's growth, and it stunts them from receiving more in their life, and knowing that we are like infinite creators, like pure potentiality, like is at our fingertips. Like anything we want to be, we could be. But it's just like our own fears that tend to just, or our ego too. It's like it wants to keep us safe and in a bubble, and like we're like, no, we like this version of ourselves. We're comfortable. Like we had to put in that hard work. It was a lot. So it's like that beginner status really like it scares a majority of us. I know it's like it scared me a lot, and it's sort of still something I'm working through.
Sure, me too. I've always felt like, so I need to be perfect right away. But the inner fire, following the inner fire is like, yeah, that humbles the perfectionism because it's like,
Yeah,
just
it
doing it
does.
anyways. We're doing it anyways, you know.
Yeah, we're just getting messy. This flame might go and mess up something, but it's okay.
Inner fire, inner passion sometimes doesn't even have a form yet. It's just a feeling. Like most of
Mm,
my following my heart in my life, it never started with, it never had a form. Like it had like, oh, I know I want to travel, or I know I want freedom. I know this, but no idea how we're getting there. No idea what's
mm,
happening. And especially when I was graduating high school, when I was 18 years old, like I was going through such an identity crisis, right? Such a
yeah.
crisis. And I remember just sitting, and I knew my desire. And this was the first time I had ever like really played with sitting with desire, and like like putting it out, just like letting it be
Mm-hmm.
there without starting a plan, you know, just
Right.
letting the desire out. And I remember like that feel what it didn't even have a form. I just anchored the desire. And then like this retreat came to me, which led me to Greece, which led me to other places, which led me to the breathwork, and then it became a snowball. And yeah, like following desire, whether it has a form or not, like that it is safe. It is always safe to trust in that desire. I also like this is a very recent story, just happened like a few days ago. Like, it is so interesting. Never had I ever thought desire could like speak in a way that was so indirect. And I'll explain this. Like, I, after coming home from Greece this time, which was like a few weeks ago, after coming home, I was having this like really deep attraction to like these things that I used to do around the age of 16, 17. Like I have a bunch of ski mountains around me, right? And I was just feeling this intense call to this ski mountain that I used to go to at that time. Now I don't go to that one anymore, but randomly feeling like I wanted to go there. And also like randomly feeling really attracted to like the people I was hanging out with at that time. Like they're not in my life anymore, but just thinking about. And so I would look at pictures or just like dive into that feeling of what that felt like. And I wasn't even like happy, I would say at this time, but for some reason looking back, it was a feeling of happiness that I didn't even feel then. It's weird, right? But it was just looking back at that version, I felt this just desire, right? And I would sit with it. I was even going on walks to where I could see that mountain and just like looking at it, sitting with this desire. I had a dream too about all the people I used to hang out with in that life, like all of these signs, right? And then out of nowhere, one of the girls I used to hang out with back then texted me and like was basically like, "Hey, just want to let you know, like, I forgive you for everything because we got into fights or yeah, like she's like, I'm forgiving people in my past, like I forgive you, much love to you." And then I asked, like, I just wanted to know how I made her feel then. I wanted to hear like that version of myself reflected back. And as soon as she told me, like, I was reminded of this girl, right? That girl I was at that time who was lacking such like was lacking self-love, lacking support, lacking connection because I was so scared to let all of that in, you
Mm.
know? And
Yeah.
when I came home, I was having these problems with my mom, like feeling connections to my mom. And it was a deep grief inside of me. And I just kept putting out into the universe, like, how do I heal this? What do I do? Felt like a wall. How do I connect with her? And as soon as that girl sent me that message, I was actually reading it while I was next to my mom. I like just something clicked inside of me like, oh, I'm still afraid to be soft to around my mom, to be a girl essentially. I'm still afraid to be a girl around my mom. I'm still afraid to let that feminine energy like move between us. I'm still afraid, I'm still afraid of that
Mm-hmm.
that she won't support me. All these things. I'm still afraid of
Yeah.
and that was just the answer. Like I couldn't like her texting me, me reflecting on that girl. That for some reason I was having all of these desires to like go back to her, like feel those friends, feel that time of my life, no idea why. I just knew it was a desire. And then where it led me to opening up that heart space with my mom, which was what I was like praying for essentially, and it spoke to me through those random little desires.
Wow.
Yeah, that I
That's
never knew that desire could really speak in such an indirect way. Yeah,
right.
yeah. So it's like in those times in our lives when we feel attracted to something that we don't think we should be, or it's like, why are we attracted to that? Like, there's something there for us. There's a version
Right.
of ourselves that wants to speak.
That story is very potent and like you just said it, like the desire spoke for itself. And I feel like that is something I want to like carry on with me too, because I get these like looks at certain things that I'm like, I feel gravitated towards it. And I feel like a desire is coming out of me, but like consciously, I'm not really desiring this. Like something internally is desiring this. And then I like gravitate towards it. Like if it's picking up a book or like messaging somebody or like, feeling close to something or, like you said, like a memory comes up and it's this whole like synchronistic moment. Like those are like the hidden gems and like the hidden little synchronistic blessings that are leading us towards like the self-healing, this like quest of like answering this question that we have within. And oh my gosh, like I feel like that story is great to like even hear and witness, because it's just like something very subtle and simple, and you kept questioning like, okay, like what is this all connecting to? But you had your own agenda and your own question too that you wanted with that connection with your mom. So
that desire, that pleasure is all connected somewhere in the consciousness, in the energy. To have that girl desire to text me,
yeah,
yeah,
like it had to be open for her to like even want to do that, like participate in this as well on her end.
Yeah.
Wow. I call those in for everyone to like whoever is listening to this to just open up to this pleasure and this desire that is being called to you through this like subtle intuitive ping, this like attraction you have to this, or wherever you're at in your life, to just really follow through with it. Like see what happens. Like just go with the flow of it and question it. And I think that's sort of like where we have to all be able to know that this what if, this mystery, like let it be what it is. Let it show you. Let God speak to you through this, because it's not even a language really. It's a feeling. It's like what you're like. It's like an energetic feeling you feel in your body. Like this gravitational like pull towards what that is. So it's even just understanding the language of your body and what it's saying.
Following the pleasure inside of you allows you to feel safe with your body. It's like they go hand in hand. Allowing yourself to feel safe in your body allows you to feel the pleasure inside of you,
Exactly.
Yeah. And for me, that has been the biggest healing, is just allowing it in, yeah, all of it.
For sure. Welcoming all of the aspects of you, the light, the dark, every inch of what resides as Ella to be seen.
And knowing no matter how intense, how like, oh my gosh, that it feels like it cannot kill you ever, ever, You can play with allowing it in. Just like even since I do rebirthing breath work, the breath, like you allow it in with like these little like, how much can I really allow in right now? How much can I really breathe in right now? How much feeling can I allow to occupy my body? It's a beautiful practice of how much space can I take up?
Yeah.
How much space can this take up? Because our bodies can hold so much, like more than we could even fathom. They hold so much energy,
Right.
more than we could even fathom. So
Of
we know that
course.
it's safe to feel. It's just how much can we, yeah. It's a dance to learning to feel safe and feeling. So it doesn't have to be some big drastic thing right away, but it's like it can be gentle. It can be like feeling a bit more here. Okay, I'm gonna retreat. I'm gonna exhale now. Feeling
Yes, yes,
big, big,
yes.
big. Okay, I'm exhaling now.
Totally. And this like that breath of life is like what it is, like at a bigger picture. It's like when we feel like something is heavy within us and we want to, us holding it in is like holding our breath, it's like tensing up in our body. And it's like when we are able to take a deep breath and like exhale it out, it's like then that's us sort of like sharing it with our support team, sharing it with our journal, sharing it through our throat chakra, like expressing it.
Thank you for receiving me and what I have to share and giving me this space to share because quite like I said, these problems, these block in my throat chakra, like I was nervous to come on here and like that, yeah,
Yeah.
I was nervous to come on here and share and now I feel so open and it feels so good.
Yeah, I feel like because I resonate with you on this too, like I totally understand that, like coming from the throat chakra, like of course, I feel like everyone wants to like express themselves, but it's just finding that safe haven to do so. I'm glad you felt that way, to feel like able to express yourself and to share, because your pieces, your article, like they are very intricate and they speak life. Like there's rawness, there's realness, there's like just this unique way of just like understanding where you're viewing the world and how we get to see through that lens and see it through color, see it through the fire. And I feel it makes it very poetic and also very like relatable to life at its core.
I want to say that I am offering free rebirthing breathwork sessions for the winter from like now until March. So, yeah, if anybody listening to this is interested in trying rebirthing breathwork that we were talking about, yeah, they can reach out to me through my Instagram or through my website. My Instagram is ella.muir, M-U-I-R, with 5 R's. And that's it. And on there, you can find my website, Being Human. It's all linked in my Instagram.
We'll put everything in the link below, and feel free to reach out to Ella. And thank you again, Ella, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And if you would like to hear more about being in your essence and thriving in your creativity and just hearing all the beautiful guests that I bring on here share their journey and share their services, be sure to share, like, and subscribe on YouTube. You can also listen to any of the episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So thank you again for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.